Thanks for coming from a session. It's a session from someone who loves XP, a fanatic. I think most of you are here probably for that same reason. Sitecore CDP and Personalize for XP fanatics. Clickbait, of course. Is it strong? We'll see. Before starting, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rodrigo Peplau, also known in the community as the Sitecore Singer, for obvious reasons. And I work for Alturo as Director of Technology and Head of Country in Brazil. And I must admit that I love XP. Yes, I do. I love XP because XP has, since I joined the Sitecore community, it was always there, omnipresent in my life, my professional life. When I started back in 2010, Sitecore was in the version 6.3. It was romantic times. I think there was probably less than 20 config files in the include folder. And Sitecore was called the OMS, right? The XDB that we know was called OMS. It took 6 years to become an MVP. And during those 6 years, amazing journey, I learned a lot about Sitecore and a lot about the Sitecore community, which is a very special community. Next year, 2017, I got my second MVP and also won the hackathon for the first time. It was really exciting. It was exciting times. Sitecore was in the 9 version, 9.0, and when I put my hands in the first time in the tech preview, I was amazed with that, but at the same time scared because it took me like 5 days to install Sitecore for the first time. I think, yeah, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The whole complication had to do with the XDB, the new X Connect, and all that things are making the platform really, really complex. Another year passed, Sitecore 9.1 was there. JSS Tech Preview was presented in the MVP Summit. And I started to shake a little, right? Things are changing, I thought. Yes, that never stops. Of course, next year, 2019, 9.3 was released, and something called Content Hub or something like that was released. And I was okay, I think this platform is not getting back to what it was before then. Yeah. But maybe that's just a toy, I don't know. One more year passed, and what happened? Content Hub gaining momentum. Quite hard to express how I started to feel when that things are moving. Okay, last year, things become really, really clear. This is not going back in time, right? Sitecore announced a huge number of acquisitions. The Sitecore, the CDP Personalize was starting to get there. And the Composable DXP was finally announced as a concept. So, okay, I don't know. I don't know if I know this platform anymore, I started to think. And here we are, 2022, Composable DXP gaining momentum, and we have to move on, right? I must confess that sometimes I feel, almost every day, uncomfortable, outdated, and even threatened sometimes, right? Raise your hand if you feel like me. Yes. For you, that's why I told myself first, I opened my heart first, because I think that would encourage you to do the same. I'm here to give you some good news. CDP and Personalize are our friends, okay? It's our friends because it's easy to learn, easy to use. It is really powerful. Don't get me wrong. In some aspects, it's really more powerful than XP. Don't throw stones. It's also fun, really fun to work. And last but not least, it's good for you and your career. Okay, that's why we should not be scared of the CDP and the Personalize. So before starting, I would like to ask yourself, are you a fan or are you a fanatic or just a fan? Right? Let's have a look at the semantics. A fan is a fanatic is a person who has excessive and single-minded zeal for something. All the synonyms are, as you can see, negative, right? Extremist, sectarian, maniac. You don't want to see it as a maniac, right? On the other hand, a fan, which is a derivation from the fanatic word, which is crazy. You just shortcut the word and everything becomes positive, right? Like you are enthusiastic, you're an admirer, you're a follower, a disciple. And here, goes a very fun fact. In some Spanish countries, Spanish-speaking countries, the word fanático comes for a positive connotation, not a negative connotation, right? And that's why I'm from Brazil, right? And in Brazil, as you know, we speak. I hope. I'm really glad nobody said Spanish. Yeah. Cool. Yes. That's why I always say, be a fan, not a fanatic, unless you speak Spanish. Then you have a good excuse for doing so. All right, so before I start the informative part of the session, I would like to describe how that will work, okay? The whole purpose with this presentation is to introduce new concepts from the CDP and Personalized world by appealing to comparisons, to what we know. So every time you see this yellow bar here, I want you to feel embraced. I want you to feel welcomed, loved, okay, and calm down. Because that means your comfort zone is there to help you learn new concepts. If you are a fresher, you will take much longer to learn. But if you are appealing to the concepts that you already know, you will speed up your learning process, right? And appealing to simplifications, of course, I would like to put a disclaimer here that, of course, I may incur in a few inaccuracies, right? So just please take this as a starting point of your journey, a learning journey, and don't stop learning, because things, of course, can be different than in the theory. So let's start with what is that? What is that about? Okay, the yellow banner. Basically, CDP and Personalize is, in a high level, the SaaS equivalent of XP, XDB, and XConnect. Put that way, things are easy, right? Everything started when Sitecore acquired this company, Boxever, who had a software called Boxever. When acquired, Sitecore very smartly broke the product into two, the CDP and the Personalize. So the same tool that used to be called Boxever is now called two things, CDP and Personalize. And, well, it has to do with collecting data from the customer, from the different channels that they are, processing data so that you can learn from the data, and finally, delivering optimized experiences to the client. Very familiar, right? I think we saw that before. So this chart here is to describe a little about how the CDP works, Customer Data Platform. So in the left here, you do have the three ways to get information into the CDP and out from CDP. I will speak briefly now, but later more details. You have the Stream API, Interactive API, and the Batch API. Here in the middle, you do have the brain of the system, where the CDP is providing omni-channel experiences to the end user and the channels that they are interacting with your brand. Okay, that's the equivalent, the yellow banner again, of the context and interactions, basically, high level, right? And personalize. Well, the left is just the same. In the middle here, we have these bullets that means nothing for you, but if I put the yellow banners, MV, testing, and personalization are there. And finally, getting all the information back to the user. Okay, it is a SaaS platform, so we need to learn how to integrate our stuff with that, right? And I will start with the APIs. So the most important one is the Stream API, which is where we send events to send information to the CDP. It is aided if you are putting together a web application by the BoxServer.js library, which is a helper library, JavaScript library, to shortcut things. There's a lot of helper methods there to make our life easier. Then you have the REST APIs. And I think it's everybody here is aware of what a REST API is. You can have synchronous and asynchronous access to CDP in multiple ways. Last but not least, you have the batch API, which is the API used for batch bringing data into CDP. And here, it is used for importing historical data from external systems to the CDP. Okay? And that's the equivalent of the XConnect Client API and the Universal Tracker, right? Okay, integrating the JS library, BoxServer.js, to your website, it's quite easy. It's a very common way to do that by using a JavaScript snippet that you see right on screen. All you have to do is to grab that, drop to your website through website injection itself or inject with the Google Tag Manager. I don't need to explain the differences. Of course, you are all aware of that. If you do via Google Tag Manager, you may experience a little delay when loading your experiences. And that's the equivalent of nothing, because as we know, XP doesn't need that. It's everything there. All right, speaking about tracking events, because in order to get data into the CDP, we are tracking whatever events are happening in your website. I will start with BoxServer Get ID, which is giving you a unique ID for using to controlling your session. And again, XP is there, leading the head, because session is managed automatically. But now I have to take care of that. Sending events is not hard at all. You just have to call this method event create. And by passing the BoxServer Get ID that you saw there, you're going to control the session and know that the input is being made correctly. A little bit of glossary here. I mentioned that there's more powerful sometimes in CDP Personalize than in XP. Here we have two events, view and identity. The two are equivalent to track the visitor identification, the page view, and doing a identification contact. But sometimes you have, you don't have an equivalent in XP. So search for, especially for orders, search for a product, add a product to your basket, confirm your purchase, paying itself. If you want to do that with XP, you need custom events. Or you can use Experience Commerce, which is, let it go. If you want to know more about integrating the CDP and XM, I would strongly recommend this page made by our friends from Sitecore, where a lot of blueprints are presented for doing common things, common scenarios like tracking visitor interactions, identifying returning visitors, tracking goals and conversions, and things like that. Okay, so now we're gonna start to please your boss who loves XP. It can be your boss, it can be your client, it can be yourself, you know. Where are my stuff? Is the first thing, the first feeling I got when I started learning CDP was, where are my stuff? So let's start with the most obvious one. Where are my contacts, right? And, well, important to know that in the CDP world, what we call contacts is actually a guest, right? And as you know, in XP, we have two types of guests. You have anonymous contacts and known contacts. In the CDP, you have three. Okay, you have a visitor, which is nothing more than an anonymous contact. You have a traveler, which is a known contact, but with just a few information, minimum to identify the guest. And a customer, which is a guest who has enough information to be plenty of information for being, it takes time, you grasp it. Well, and if you know XConnect well, you will know that you can save data in the contact model and you can create even more facets if you want, right? The same thing can be done in CDP with the guest data model and the guest data extensions. It's not strongly typed, it's a key value pair, the data extensions, but it does pretty much the same thing, except that you have to take care of the formatting. Well, as you know, your boss knows, the experience profile is there to provide your list of contacts. Who's the guy? Yeah. And then you see that all the interactions are there. The profile of the contact is there, and everything it does is tracked in the timeline. CDP has the same thing. It has a list of guests. It has the information about what your guest is doing, including total spend. This is not out of the box in XP, right? And a bunch of other things like the devices and the time and the day that the person is accessing your website and things like that. So, it's really powerful in such a way. It's incomparable. There's nothing like that in XP world, including the ability to track down individual purchases, and that's quite exciting. But your boss is not yet satisfied, and he keeps on pushing you against the wall, telling you, okay, but what about privacy regulations? Yeah, it's always a tough question. Well, as you know, and your boss knows as well, the privacy regulations are, we have the privacy checklist in Sitecore 10. It's there forever, since 9, I guess. And there's a bunch of information there. You can mark your facet properties as PII sensitive, making it not be stored anymore there. And you have a bunch of features to, right to erasure, right to be forgotten, and all that. In the CDP, here I have to confess, this is a little less than we are used to. You have bare minimum to do what is compliant to the privacy regulations. You can store PII, P2, whatever, outside of the CDP. You will use first-party segments to store data, and you can delete guests, okay? That's a bare minimum to accomplish the right to be forgotten, and I think it needs more, because a lot of things are still requiring a lot of manual intervention. And then your boss, not satisfied still, are asking you, where are my rules, right? Because he knows that rules are a very important part of the XP, where you can easily create any kind of business logic. And there are a lot of out-of-the-box rules. Here you have an example where the first name is Rodrigo. It will trigger some experience. And he knows that, he's used to that, how to create more rules, and it's very easy. And he's afraid of losing this power, right? But not, because in CDP Personalize, we have what we call the decision models. Decision models are there with a two-folded purposes. First is to build out the logic, and second is to make it readable for business users. Okay? In the bottom here, you have the inputs, and in the top, you have the business logic. I will go into details on these things right now. So starting with the input data, here in the left, you do have the input of data that is native data in CDP. So all this data is stored locally. You have the guest data, order, and session. You can also grab data from external systems. You have data system analytical models. Both of them are just calling an external web API. The purpose of having two is, again, readability. Because data system is more like generic purpose APIs, while the analytics model is for artificial intelligence, decision takers, and services oriented to those kind of things. But basically, in practice, you can switch them easily. Just gonna make harder for them to read. And here you have a middle field, which is called knowledge sources. Knowledge sources, the data comes from outside, but it's asynchronously bring to the CDP, so you don't have to wait, as you call this external system. It takes time to load. And here, no, it's immediate because the data is residing on the CDP. Business logic. We have three ways to implement or to put together business logic, and the most common way is, and simplest way, is decision tables. Here you have the equivalent of the rule that I showed before, where you have, if the person is Rodrigo, then returns true. If it's not Rodrigo, returns false. Quite easy. But of course, you cannot represent any business logic like this. That's why you're gonna use programmable decisions. And here, as the name states, you're gonna use software code to do that. You have a JavaScript library with a lot of helpers to help you do that. And you have decision templates as well, which is basically a programmable decision that is packed up for business users to use. So with that, you can have these input fields for any business user to put together that. All right. And then he continues. How personalization works now. All right. More glossary. When we speak about personalization in the XP world, it's what we call experience. And that can be a bit confusing because the other way, MV tests are called experiment. So it's just a little difference. But, every time you hear about experience, you're gonna just translate mentally to personalization. Okay? And your boss knows very well that you can easily create personalization in the XP by clicking this little button. And as you do that, you can use the beloved rules to decide if your variation is going to be triggered or not. And here you have the content. You are all familiar with that, right? This is how in XP you can have the same component looking differently. In the CDP, we have what we call web experience, right? Web experience is where you are returning markup, basically. So you have multiple components, let's say, out of the box in the library. Most of them are really looking good, and you can use out of the box just direct to your implementation. That's not a big deal. Remember, here you are returning markup. So, of course, this is only feasible for web applications, right? So you have here pop-up takeover. You have here top bar. You have sidebars. And everything is there for you to just grab to your page easily. And also, there's a lot of power behind that. You have the ability to use markup, you define the markup, you can inject your CSS, you can inject your JavaScript. Quite powerful in that sense. If you are concerned of not being able to do, to control your markup, it's not like that. You have exactly the same powers that we have in XP to do this. Okay. And here, it's what we call a full stack experience. And a full stack experience is nothing else but an experience. However, you're not returning markup. You're returning only data, right? So if you have a non-web application, like I don't know, probably a mobile phone application or something like that, you are not going. Markup is useless for you, right? So you got to get the data and do something with your data. And that's why you're returning JSON in this case. Okay, setting up an experience is also quite easy. You have here in the top the variations. Sorry, it's called variants. And the variants are there, so you can select your variants. You can target your audience by using the two things. I will go through that in details later. Page targeting and audiences. This is quite powerful. This allows you to do much more than we do with XP, and I will explain later why. The decision model that we already spoke is right here. Oh, I forgot to say that in the decision model, you are assembling your business logic, but also you're returning data. That's a little different from the personalization XP. Because in the XP, you have the rules. The rules trigger the display of a data source. The data source is the data, and the rule is just business logic. Here in the decision model, you do have the same thing. The decision model is doing both. It's putting together business logic, but also it's putting together, it's giving to you content so you can show whatever you are showing, displaying your experience. And last but not least, you have the goals, which is a way to analyze if your personalization is working or not. I don't think we have that in XP, right? It's quite of a mixture of personalization and A/B test, because then you can compare your default state with your personalized state. And if it's not working, you can adjust. Cool? All right. Important here is there is a huge difference between variants and variations. I took some time to understand that because they look so alike, right? Variant 1, 2, variation 1, Brazil, default. Why are they so different? The thing is, in CDP, in Personalize, you don't have the power to choose the variant. It is random, If you put together 3 variants, you never know which one will be displayed. While in the XP world, of course, you do have the rules and you have the control of what is going to be displayed by using the variant. So it's still unclear, quite unclear to me, how much variants you're gonna have in your experience. Because if you're not able to choose the variant, it's, again, just a way to test and personalize at the same time, right? You have zero control over the variants. Like I mentioned, in the personalization, in the Personalize, the content comes from the decision model. So whatever the decision model runs and reaches your variant, the content will come with back as an input to your variant. While, as you know, in the XP world, we do have the content comes from data source items. Okay, and here is, I think, the thing that took more time for me to learn to understand is that because with the mindset that I have, the XP mindset, of course, you want to see each variant showing different content, right? But here's different. The variant displays all the content using variables and JS code. So basically, you grab the data coming from your data model, your decision model, and you display the data in your variant. And as you know, in XP, each variant has its own content that's coming from the data source item, which is quite demanding in terms of you have to switch the mindset to grasp that. And last but not least, in the CDP, the idea behind using variants is just to measure what is the best performance. So you can have, again, it's a mixture of testing and personalizing. So you can have multiple variants just to show maybe probably a different color and see which of them are working best. While in the XP, we are just the variations are there to display the personalized content, and that's all. Okay, cool. Well, we are all used to doing personalization in XP, and that's why I am putting together here what is the difference. You know, if you are personalizing content in a CDP, opt first to go pick the option 1, which is the personalized way. And here, you know, you are, like you're seeing here, you're using tokens to show the data coming from the decision model, which is similar to how we program a component in Sitecore XP. And at the same time, it is confusing because it is a variant, and every variant can have a different markup behind it. So it's confusing because you have the tokens, but if you want to switch the markup, you still have the power to do so. The option B, I guess, not very elegant. You can have the markup, and using code, you can do, you know, getting here this data, variant 1, it is coming from the decision model. And then you can do if variant 1, do show this. This is all hard-coded. I don't recommend you doing that, of course, but I'm just showing that you can, right? I think multiple experiences is the way to go if you want to do similar to what we do in Sitecore XP, where you basically will take like many experiences. Back to my example, Rodrigo, non-Rodrigo, you will have 2 web experiences. One for Rodrigo and another one for non-Rodrigo, for the rest of the world. Quite different paradigm in that sense. And also, I have a very important and exclusive information for you. XP-like personalization is coming to the CDP, right? The Sitecore team is working hard with that because they know the importance, the value of the way we do things in XP, and they are incorporating that way in the platform, in the CDP Personalized platform. 10 minutes? 12? Okay. Targeting audiences is different as well. XP, as you know, we have page targeting. For that, you go and do the personalization in the item, right? And then you're targeting that item only. And you have the template targeting. Basically, not very common, but you do the personalization in the template, and all items from the same template will have the personalization. When it comes to CDP, Personalize in this case, we have much more power to do that. You have what we call page targeting, and that's really powerful. Here, as you can see, you can use a rule to target some pages. And with that, you can do page level. For that, you only have to just put here the whole page URL, and the personalization will be triggered, the web experience will be triggered on that page only. But if you do like I just did here, using the domain, suddenly you are able to personalize every single page in your website, which is something you cannot do in XP without a lot of labor, right? Manual work. You can do so template level as well, because there is what we call advanced page target in CDP. And this is where, no, I can't speed up. This is where you can like do something like similar to template level. Imagine that you have a page type like a blog post, right? You can inject something in the page, in the body or whatever, where you want. And then you can use advanced page targeting to target those pages only by checking the class that you injected in the body or whatever. You can trigger that only for that kind of pages. And also there's something that we don't have in XP, which is trigger experience. And here it's really powerful, because then you can interact to respond to interactions from your visitor. So imagine a user clicks in a button and a personalization experience appears for him. A user submits a form and something special shows to him. And you know, it's especially useful for when you have like headless implementations where you are not just personalizing when the page loads, but you can also personalize whatever you click on, any interactions that happens in that page. And the audience filtering, it's again, I think this is where the two worlds intersect, because there's a lot of rules in this to target audience. So you can, similarly to what we do in XP, you can do like, if the user comes from Brazil, I'm always going to use my country for that example. Then you show the experience, otherwise you don't. Everything you see in red here, it's impossible with XP, or very, very laborious, or demands customizations. Okay. Multivariate tests. Important to tell you that what we call MV tests in XP world, it's called experiment here in the CDP. Okay? And your boss know very well, it's easy to click there and create as many variations that you want. And the data source will determine, you can mention, you can configure a lot of things about the audience. And even you can test page against page in XP, right? Not very common, but you can do that. In the CDP world, you do have what we call, again, web experiment, returning markup, and full stack experiment, returning data only. Setting up an experiment is pretty much the same. You have the same features here, content variants, page audience filtering, decision model, the goal, and everything together will play the role of basically putting together the A/B test. It's funny because here the variants are exactly the same as they are in CDP and the XP, you know, which is crazy because they have the same name, but they're actually totally different between the two things. Okay, and while I just mentioned, in the XP you can test components, right? In the CDP you can do the same. Technically, it's not right to call the CDP because it's a personalized. It's the same as in the XP. However, testing pages, it is not recommended to do that in the CDP Personalize, because Personalize doesn't have a way to test a page against the other like we do in XP. So what we got to do is to test multiple components in the page at the same time, and so that the page looks totally different. If you use the same decision model, the page you can control. You can have two pages tested one against the other, but the problem is don't do that, because there was research made internally in Sitecore where they noticed that the more variants you have, the higher the possibility to have positive tests. Okay, so basically, if you are using a lot of variants, it's not recommended to do so. You will have useless information back. So the analytics data will not be helpful for anything. Okay? So folks, the informative part of this session is over, and I know I'm getting there. Thanks so much. And I would like to invite you, okay, to engage. Don't stand still. Because if we are talking about different platforms, the community is the same. The people are the same. The same helpful people, the same friendly, and I mean, they're really there to help you without any competition. So I'm urging you to, if you're not engaged yet, please join the Sitecore Slack chat. There is a channel only for that, custom data platform. Every day I'm there. There is a Stack Exchange. There is a tag specifically for the CDP. So if you are in trouble, reach out to those two channels. Or if you want to help, get in as well. The whole session you see here has been put together by using the official documentation, which I'm really glad to tell it's good. It's really good. And if it was not, I would be telling you. You have the doc Sitecore-CDP, so the URLs are right there. The CDP Knowledge Hub, I'm not sure if you know this, it's kept by the Sitecore Boxever, formerly Boxever team. A lot of good topics there, a lot of even including best practices. And the developers Sitecore.com has also a huge collection of articles there. And training, there's a lot of free training, right? Those 4 trainings are there. I heard there are more to come. Everything free. Of course, you have to pay if you want to get the certificate. But if you don't, you know, it's there for you to join. So I think that's it. I would like to thanks for your presence, and please raise your hand if you have any question. Oh, very important. I'm giving away Sitecore posters. You are all invited to grab one and bring home. Okay. Raise your hand if you have questions. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the yellow banner. Yes, go ahead.
Hi. It was really interesting presentation. Thank you very much. Just want to ask, can you send like push notification as personalization to your website?
Yes, you can. You can do that by using full stack experiences. Okay, so you can trigger the personalization by interaction, and in that case, with the full stack experience, you are only using the web API. You have to deal with the data programmatically, of course, right? Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah. And another question: these decision rules, you know, this logic, what you write in JavaScript, does it run on like CDP or on client side in browser? If you build some rules,
it runs in the browser.
Okay.
Yeah. The Boxever.js is doing that. Anything else? Right there.
And to comment to that, so that means that we need the Boxever cookies or whatever to be all allowed in that in the browsers session?
Yes, you do. The Boxever.js will control the session by using the browser ID, and you can do that as well. You can disable the out-of-the-box cookies and control the way you want using sessions or even whatever you can imagine. If it's a web application, a cookie, of course, but if it's not, you can control with the ID the way you want. And there's still a lot of dependency on programming. So if you are scared of losing your job, you will still be required for a long time.